Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the first session of day 2 of the Information Literacy Summit. You are here in room A for breakout session 4 with Rebecca Starkey. The presentation is Developing Undergraduates' Information Literacy Skills for Effective Research Proposals.
All right, hi everybody. Let me switch my screen here. And we'll get started. All right, so I am really grateful to be part of the Information Literacy Summit this year. I've attended several years in person. It's always one of my favorite conferences. So it's wonderful that we are available to be here today online. So I'm also very pleased to share my experiences about a new workshop series that we are offering at the University of Chicago to help students develop information literacy skills for effective research proposals. So I thought I'd start just with a little bit about my institution. The University of Chicago is a top-ranked private research university in the Hyde Park neighborhood of Chicago. There's about 17,000 students. And I'm going to be talking about the undergraduate college, and that makes up about 40% of our student population. And the college has expanded in the last 20 years. When I began at the University of Chicago in 2001, the college was around 4,000 students. So this surge in undergraduate population has just been a real culture shift for the university. The college is 100% full-time and residential. All first-year students are required to live on campus. And about 57% of our students are on financial aid, with about 11% in Pell Grant recipients. So I've just had some demographics here, so you know a little bit about our student population. But more importantly, I'd like to share a little bit of information about our curriculum, which is really what impacts our information literacy instruction at the college. Despite its growing size, the college curriculum in many ways is more like a small liberal arts college. The foundation of the undergraduate curriculum is the core, which is our Gen Ed program. Much of the core, especially in the first 2 years, focuses on the humanities and social sciences and the studying of texts. This means that students in the courses read books on course readings, and then write papers analyzing those texts with little or no outside research. So while writing instruction is integrated into our humanities core, it really doesn't focus on research. We don't have a English 101 or embedded information literacy program like many other institutions do. So this provides us with a lot of challenges in terms of reaching students with information literacy training. So while we offer library programs during orientation week, for many students, the library is really just the place where they study and pick up course reserve readings. A couple of the humanities core classes go to the Hannah Holborn Gray Special Collections Research Center to view items related to their syllabus. So for example, while they're reading the Odyssey, they might come and look at our Homer collection. But that's not really the information literacy training that the students need, unfortunately. I mean, it's a wonderful experience and they do start using the archives, but they don't really have to meet with a librarian or talk to the library at all about finding academic sources. So most students take the core in their first 2 years, and then the middle years, they may dip into their major, but or do study abroad, but they don't have a lot of research assignments. That really starts in the 3rd and 4th years. So like the spring quarter of 3rd year and the beginning of 4th year, when many students start BA seminars or are doing kind of a capstone project. So at this point, we do reach them with instruction. We nearly reach all the majors with instruction at that point, but that fundamental research and information literacy skills, you know, we're starting fresh in many cases with the students, that they don't have those basic skills at their late years. So being decentralized and a faculty-led institution, we've struggled really to integrate information literacy into the curriculum. So, but we've been very pleased that there's this new partnership that we've developed with the college, and it's made a huge difference just within the last year or so. Our Office of Undergraduate Research is the College Center for Research and Fellowships. And for many years, it was primarily a gateway to fellowships and scholarships on campus. But in the last few years, its mission has expanded to support undergraduate research broadly. While student research has long been part of the University of Chicago, many of the efforts were decentralized and managed by specific departments. The new office demonstrated the college's new focus on research being a key part of the college experience and centralized some of the services. You can see this emphasis reflected throughout many publicity materials the university puts out, from college missions to the expansion of study abroad grants the last few years, and the emphasis of student research opportunities on various websites of departments and majors. Approximately 80% of undergraduate students now engage in research on or off campus in some way through research assistantships, internships, or travel research grants. And we are also a top producer of Fulbright award recipients. But despite these high numbers of undergraduate researchers, the CCRF staff noticed when working with students applying for national awards and grants like Fulbright or the National Science Foundation, undergraduates lacked many of the key skills like how to conduct a literature review or identify primary source collections. The gap the library saw in instruction during the second and third years in the college was also the time when students have to apply for these fellowships and opportunities. So this made them very challenging for the students to apply when they were struggling with some of these basic skills. So we reached out to the center when they sort of changed their mission, and we had some really great conversations about this common problem, and we saw a lot of opportunities to partner. So I'm going to talk now about our workshop series, and like many collaborations, it just started over coffee. I met up with Sandra Zupin, who's the Assistant Director for National Fellowships and Grants at the Center for Research and Fellowships. And we met over coffee to talk about the Fulbright process and to talk a little bit about how the library could support that. But in our conversations, we talked a lot about these information literacy gaps that we were seeing and some of the things she saw in applications. And we sort of started chatting to say, well, what can we do about this? What can we do outside the curriculum since we're not able to have it in the curriculum? What can we do to help support these students? And we came up with a workshop series. So Sandra and I had several goals for this series. We hope to help undergraduates improve information literacy skills, both for coursework, but also for those research opportunities. Sandra and her colleagues at the CCRF really saw this as a way to improve research proposals produced by undergraduates. So I think both of us a little bit long-term hope that this experiment might also demonstrate a need and a desire for more independent research instruction, perhaps like a certificate program, or this experience might be able to inform conversations with faculty in discussions about information literacy. But underlying this also was the soft goal of we wanted to build this relationship between the library and the CCRF. So we thought this might be a good way to kind of jump in and work together. So we met a few times to plan, and we thought about what was important to include in the series. We wanted it to be thorough, but we also wanted a way for students to kind of pick and choose things that were of interest to them. And we also hoped that the programs could be broadly covered for first years and also for upperclassmen. We wanted it to be really welcoming at all levels. I guess our biggest question was like, would students come to this? The Center for Research and Fellowships had really good turnout for their various information programs and sessions, but the library, well, our workshops, we have low attendance. So I thought maybe by collaborating with another office, we might get more people coming to our workshops. So this is a great chance for us. So we came up with a brief program plan and description. And you notice I've highlighted here that one of the aims was to build students' information literacy and research skills. And that was really impressive for me because we at the library have been always very cautious about using information literacy as a term on campus. It's not something that our faculty like. They don't connect with that. But most of the Center for Research and Fellowship staff have come from universities where this is, information literacy is embedded in the curriculum and is a commonly used term. So we were really pleased. I was really pleased that they acknowledged that this was something that we needed to help students with. So that was great that it was in the descriptions. That's just a small aside. But we came up with a five program series over 5 weeks, offering 2 programs per week for students to attend at different times. While students could attend the whole series, each session stood on its own. The first 2 sessions were taught by me, Introduction to Scholarly Works and Searching and Finding Scholarly Sources. Sandra and occasionally another member of the CCRF staff taught the last 3 sessions: literature review, research design, and the research proposal. So the first library session focused on scholarly communication, which is not something that we often do with introductory programs. But I thought it was important to provide an overview of the types of research publications that were available and a discussion about where scholars publish works in different disciplines. Program also covered the peer review process and explained the importance of citation and scholarly communication. Moving from there, I talked a little bit about how you determine quality of works. We talked a little bit about citation metrics and scholarly book reviews to help students understand how their citations and literature review are important in this broader sense of scholarly communication. The second session was more of a traditional library program. It focused on finding sources, discussion of reference sources, databases, search techniques for literature reviews, as well as library services like our Ask a Librarian program and Interlibrary Loan. Sandra and the staff at the center designed and taught the last 3 programs, and these really focused more on writing and research. So the first one focused on the literature review. The second focused on research design, which included methodologies, ethics, and developing a research plan. IRB was also covered. The last session was culminated in how to write your research proposal. We attended all of the sessions, so both of us were there to answer questions or kind of dip in when it was appropriate, which I think was really a helpful thing. So the workshop series was first offered in January 2020 as I hoped, the collaboration was really good in helping getting the word out about the program. We promoted it widely across campus. And we were very encouraged by the first turnout at the first program. There was a really great mix of students at various levels. We even had some graduate students attend the session. The conversation was really great. We shared materials about from different collections, and we had a great discussion. There were lots of questions from the students. But then the second program, attendance just dropped. And while we were expecting like some petering out over the series, I really didn't think that the second session would just slow, like the attendance would just really drop off a cliff. And I really felt, what did I do wrong? This was a new collaboration. They haven't even seen the CCRF sessions yet. So I reviewed our evaluations from the first program, and generally the comments were very positive. It was a great overview of different types of research literature. It was a good broad overview. It was great for freshmen, so very positive. But there were also some negative comments about it being too general, too basic. I wouldn't have come to this if I had known this is what it was. And what I realized then was that a lot of the graduate students who had come dropped. So we lost the graduate students, and I will say a few of the seniors that had participated. We did ask who people were on the session. So a lot of it was due to the content. One comment we received from one of the students, who I think was a graduate student who attended all the sessions, she said about how it was more pointed and that the other one was just too basic, was not what they were looking for. But overall, the comments were positive, and the attendance did remain steady from there on. It didn't really drop more. We actually had a few students who took all 5 sessions, So it was really just that, I think, that an introductory session. So we did go back to the drawing board after holding this, and based on the feedback and our experience, we also just decided that we were being a little too ambitious. We weren't offering a certificate for this, and it was 5 weeks out of a 10-week quarter. So that's pretty intensive. It was intensive for the students. It was also intensive for us as staff. There was a lot of staff time, especially since we were doing multiple sessions per week. So we decided we were going to cut it a little bit. And we also thought we'd reorder the sessions and condense the material. So we moved to revising the series to make it just a 3-part series. So the first session about scholarly communication we dropped. I did move in some of the content to the searching and finding scholarly sources session. And we also shifted the order significantly. We thought it would make more sense to talk about, in the research process, knowing what the literature review was before you actually went and found sources for it. So that was just putting it more into context. And I think that was a great improvement. So, and then Sandra combined some of her content about methodologies and ethics into the research proposal session. So we condensed it quite a bit. So we had this all put together and planned, and then COVID came along. And so we did continue the series and moved it online. So we held live Zoom webinars in spring quarter of 2020, and then winter quarter of 2021. And during the last series in the winter quarter of 2021, we recorded the programs so that they would be available. So we put the recordings were placed in the CCRF had created a new resource library on their website of all their various recordings of their programs. And this was a really great place to point to. The library now has a link to their resource library, not just for the series, but for the other programs the CCRF offers. And they are available for students whenever they want to use them. We also can promote this to faculty members. So if they're looking for supplemental materials for their classes, they can link to the recordings. And these are locked down to the University of Chicago community. So once we did this, pandemic slowdown, once the recording was made, we really opted then to pause. So we're all juggling a lot of responsibilities, and the center staff was, and the library is, and it was just a lot to kind of have this series on top of everything else that was going on in the world. We also found that students were suffering from Zoom fatigue. And this is actually something that I noted when we held the sessions last year when COVID first started. We had students living overseas in Singapore and Korea attending the workshop series when they should be sleeping. And I felt really bad about that, and the pressures of everything in coursework, and then that they felt like they had to, they wanted to attend. It was optional, but that they went in the middle of the night to watch the sessions, and recorded sessions allowed them to view that whenever they want. So we have taken a pause, and we're waiting to see what happens in the fall before pursuing it more. So what we've learned so far, there's quite a bit from this workshop series, and I'm going to share some of my observations and what I think has changed, what has worked, and what hasn't. First, in any collaboration, there's some different styles and practices, and one of the things that came up was assessment. When I taught the sessions in person the first time, I came in, I counted my attendees like we always do, and I passed out my evaluation forms. And I did that for our sessions, the 2 sessions. And then when the CCRF started theirs, I had the evaluations in my hand, and I was like, but they didn't really want to use them, so I didn't push it. And it really, that makes sense. For them, they really just wanted to gauge the conversation and questions that the students had in the programs. And they also wanted to see what students were attending and whether they were applying for research fellowships. So while my short evaluations were quite helpful in shaping it, I think we needed an evaluation that was more based on shared outcomes, what we wanted to see from this, both from the CCRF and from the library. So moving forward, I will have a conversation about how we want to assess this better, because I think we need more thorough assessment, but I want to be in line to what they think is important too, not just what our library thinks is important. A real success was promotion. Working together was a big benefit. I mentioned that our library workshops tend to have really poor turnout in general, like sometimes nobody shows up. So having another group to help spread the word was very helpful. Working with the college was especially nice because the College Center for Research and Fellowships has its own newsletter, and they have access to a lot of listservs that we don't have access to, various student listservs from first-generation students or international students that it's hard to get things shared to sometimes from the library. So that was wonderful. So the word really got out. And on the other hand, the library, we do much more with social media. Our library is busy. We could put posters up, people see them in ways that they don't in the other college buildings. So that was a nice way to kind of share the marketing and promotion. It made it really easy, and we kind of complemented each other. Another unexpected benefit was the ability to repackage and reuse the content from this workshop series for other instruction programs. All the library's sessions, the slides and materials were placed in we have a little instruction and repository for all of our staff. So we have a shared box drive where people store their slides and teaching materials so they can reuse them and adapt them. And I know the session on scholarly communication was used by someone. I know some of the other programs were used and adapted. So I adapted and used them for several classes and workshops that I did. And then the CCRF director at one point asked me to kind of do a condensed, combined version of the workshop series. And Sandra was quite generous in letting me use literature review slides that she had created, and I was able to adapt them to the way I teach, and it was just wonderful to have this content, especially during the pandemic when we were also pressured to create content and kind of teach more, doing more Zoom sessions. So it was great to have like kind of these prepackaged basic programs available that could be just slightly changed for different audiences. So that was a real benefit. However, we did notice a significant difference between the in-person series and the remote sessions. As I mentioned, the initial programs were, we had lots of questions. They were interactive. I brought a lot of materials from the library to look at, like journals and encyclopedias. And we brought samples of journal articles for the students to review. And this made for a lot of engagement. And then for COVID, we were all, I think, just balancing a lot. So it was more of just a presentation. And the students turned off their cameras, and it was just another webinar, and they might ask some questions at the end, but it wasn't like the give and take, and they didn't feed off the energy like they did in the room. And I think also having all the students in rooms where they ask questions, people feel more comfortable asking questions when they see other peers asking questions. And speaking of questions, we did have, the questions we were getting really did show the need. We received all sorts of questions, everything from how do I find a book in the stacks to, we had a big conversation about, should I put my opinion in a literature review? Am I able to express my thoughts about the quality of works that I'm reviewing? And we also had a conversation about publishing and student publishing. So that really did show that there was really a need, a gap, just from the conversations we were having. And this is what we hope to see with the series. So, and I mentioned graduate students had come, and I think that initially there was a lot of desire from the graduate students to attend a workshop series on research. And while this program was not designed for them, I do think there's an opportunity here. We have a lot of large MA programs that are one-year programs. The students are very disconnected from campus, and they often aren't supported as well as we should, I think. Sometimes in terms of research, they have to write a thesis. So we're hoping to partner with UChicago Grad, which is our graduate student office, and see if we can offer this in some way once we're back to campus for graduate students and involving our subject librarians and our Center for Digital Scholarship. So was this series a success? I think in some ways it was. It reinforced our collaboration, which I think is the biggest thing. We really were able to see each other teaching. We fed off each other and asked questions, and we really, it was a great collaboration. We also had very dedicated students who would come to every program, which was just wonderful to see. One of them was a first year. So there's a lot of really great interactions. And I think it also let the library dip into other areas of research that we're not commonly asked to teach about from our faculty. Mostly they want us to show us databases or do a search. And this was much more thoughtful about the scholarly research process. So while we didn't solve the information literacy gap at our college, I do think it has started broader conversations with faculty and other administrators in the college to think more about this gap of where we need to serve our students and how we might get them the information and the research skills that they need to be successful. So moving forward, I hope once we return to campus, we can start this up again. I did mention that we want to redo our assessment a bit, and we will continue to improve and adapt it and package it in different ways based on feedback. So I like to acknowledge my partner in this endeavor, Sandra Zupin, who is the Assistant Director of National Fellowships and Grants at the college. And when I proposed this, it was way back in 2020, at the very beginning of our collaboration, which has continued and grown. And I really, in retrospect, I wish she could have joined us today. So in her absence, I do want to acknowledge the work that she has put in and her collaboration and what a great partner she is. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. We have some additional time, and I have posted the slides and transcripts on the box drive right there. So feel free to download those if you'd like to take a look and read through the notes. And there's my contact information as well. I'm happy to answer additional questions after the session. So I'll stop sharing. And I hope I have stopped sharing. Have I stopped sharing?
You have.
Okay,
yes.
good.
And the
last time I
is...
did a presentation, I didn't, and I was talking.
And the floor is open for anybody who wants to ask any questions. And actually, Rebecca, I was wondering if you could put the URL for the Box account into the chat. I was about to, but then I didn't get all the way. I got up to Starkey and that was it. By typing it in.
It's a little long.
Any questions from folks?
Did you address using data and
you.
data resources in the program? I see. I talked about data a little bit, but no, not as much as we probably should have. Data instruction is another gap that we see. I think that is something I've brought up. We did talk about it in terms of research ethics, collecting, storing data properly, but not locating data and evaluating data. So while I referred to it in the searching and finding scholarly sources, I had a slide on data. We have a research guide on finding data that I pointed to. We didn't really go into that as much as probably we should. If we did a series that was more like one for STEM and one for humanities, which is another possibility, I think, you know, we would change things dramatically, and data would be a huge part of that.
Other questions? Folks can feel free to unmute if you'd like.
I'll unmute because typing it takes too long. I was wondering, I also have quite a split between grad students and undergrad for information literacy needs that, like you, I am finding are very different. And I'm wondering, because you said your initial foray captured about as many grad students as undergrad, which resulted in your big drop, what your advertising looked like how you pitched it to the students, because you said you felt like you had pitched it maybe not quite in a way that accurately presented what you were, the intention of your program. So I think we talk a lot about successful pitching, but not so often about unsuccessful pitching. And I'm wondering where you feel you went wrong with it.
Yeah, and you know, the interesting thing is we did not send this to any graduate listservs. We did not, you know, it was on our social media, so they may have picked it up from there, but we did not restrict graduate students from attending, but we just didn't expect them to come. And I think that, you know, I do think the wording, we always try to, it's very hard to get a feedback on what students think what we think students would be attracted to in terms of descriptions. And I'm not sure, I think it was more than overwhelming need for these master's programs to have instruction, because they're not given really any information literacy instruction. They come from a variety of different institutions, their backgrounds. Some of them are returning students. And I think there was just the huge gap. In terms of the undergrads, I think it's hard to, we have done the Ithaca survey, and all of our students think they're great at research. So I'm sure you have this too a little bit, but our data shows that our students are overwhelmingly confident that they know what they're doing. It's only when they actually start doing things that they realize they have these problems, which is what the research fellowship, they were seeing with the research fellowships. So I think what we're hoping also, we've been doing more targeted programs with Fulbright and some of these programs so we don't really have to advertise. They're kind of they made to go to them, and as part of the process. So that helps. And because I really think that for voluntary programs, a lot of our students just don't, like, I don't need that. I'm good. I'm doing Google Scholar, and they're doing okay. And until they get to like their later years. So I think it was twofold. Like, I still think we need to tweak our description and how we pitch it. And I think we should use more students to review our description to give us feedback, probably. And then I do think there is that overwhelming need for the graduate students. There's not that support. So we need something specific for graduate students that covers all these things like publishing and data and things that they need. Missy, do you want to talk, or yeah?
I'm going to talk. I'm going to jump on the talking can be easier than typing bandwagon. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I was honestly a little surprised that UFC's core in some ways has some of the same effect as our completely open curriculum, as far as leaving those big gaps between the intro courses not really being involved, and then realizing once you get into the majors or those master's programs that there is that big need. Also, we're not allowed to say infolit on our campus too, although it's slowly changing. So thanks for the affirmation. I was wondering how you were thinking about what we've seen is a real difficulty in transfer, because students are getting exposure to research in different ways in different courses, and then they're left to make sense of it, sort of moving from one department or discipline to another. Have you thought about in this way, and then this is sort of an additional, you know, if you're using fellowships as the context, have you thought about how effective it was to be presenting an intro to research kind of without that disciplinary context, and thinking about how that might have been received by students or their readiness to engage a general lit review as opposed to what their English lit prof said, as opposed to their, anthro prof, and how you might be able to address that?
Yeah, I mean, that was an issue. And I feel like that was a loss by losing the first program, because the first program I did talk a lot about discipline specific approaches to research and where people publish and how articles are written. We had actually had a student who was in philosophy in that first series, undergraduate, and she's like, Sandra had been going through, she has a social sciences background, so she had been going through an article talking about methodology and this and that for, all the sections that are clearly marked out in articles in science and social science literature about the methodology, the process, the citations, lit review. And this was a student from philosophy, and she's like, that's not in our literature. And I kind of went, yeah, that's not how they approach it. It's very different in the humanities. And so there is that transfer. I think the big picture is missing for a lot of the students. And that's why I still kind of lean back to, like, they do need that introduction part. Like, what is this? What is scholarly communication? Why am I doing this? How does it differ from major to major? Because they write for one class, they write for another class. One instructor, may approach things completely different than the other. And then when they start diving into their major too, learning methodology at that point is really challenging because they don't have a concept of it. So I don't have an easy solution for that, but I do think earlier they need to be broadly just brought into the idea that they're part of the scholarly communications process and what their papers mean. Like, what is this about? Why are they doing research? Why is a lit review important? And then when you get to disciplines, it varies based on these things. And then we could specialize a bit more if that was earlier. We have had conversations with faculty about this, as well. Data, back to data too, like, what is data? What are primary sources, various disciplines? And for a workshop like this that's open to everybody, maybe more specialized versions of this would be better.
We have about 3 minutes left if there are any additional questions.
I had a question, Rebecca, which was largely, this is Lee.
Hi.
Hey, Rebecca. Largely because of the focus on applying for research support and fellowships, which sort of seemed, this is where this program kind of started. I was just sort of curious as to how many students, undergraduate or graduate, were looking for this we're looking at this program to help them with applications. And did that continue to be a focus, or was it really more generally on research?
We wanted it to be general so other people would attend, but I know CCRF staff encourage students who are applying for specific fellowships to attend. We have, in the last couple of years, as part of this collaboration, done more connected instruction with the specific award process. So Fulbright, we do programming for. National Science Foundation, we now start doing programming for Truman, the Truman Scholarship too, our public policy librarians been involved with. So that's the way we've been moving more to, is really being connected with that whole process. Like, if you're applying for this, you have to go to a session on the library. And that's the way it's been with Fulbright now for 2 years. And they have noticed a difference. So this was sort of to fill in the gaps. I think that we have a lot of independent, like, kind of travel grants and research assistantships that students apply for. So we were hoping that would be of interest to the students. But I think really, having it part of the whole application process has been, the carrot stick kind of approach has been much better. And it makes more sense to them, to the students, that why this might be needed.
Thank you.
That takes us just about to the end. I want to thank everyone who attended today, and a special thanks to our speaker, Rebecca Starkey. And thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Rebecca. And we do have lunch break right now, so folks can head over to the virtual hallway if you'd like to chat with people or just come back for a final session, final breakout session of the day at 12:30.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jen, thank you for helping out.
Absolutely,
Getting
absolutely.
this all set up.
Great. It was funny at the, oh, let's see, stop recording. Here we go.